Just what I said. I was expressing the moral outrage I felt toward this man. I wasn't articulating a policy change. And I think that, he continues on this course that he's on. He is going to become a pariah worldwide. And who knows what he becomes at home in terms of support.
Are you concerned this remark might escalate the conflict?
No, I'm not. I'm not at all. Look. And look, the other thing is that a couple people have asked me as well, might as well speak to it unless you want to ask the question, but, that other governments have suggested that this is a problem, I'm escalating things. No. And has it weakened NATO? No, it hadn't. NATO has never, ever, 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 ever been as strong as it is today.
Well, today's event was supposed to be an opportunity for the president to pivot to his domestic agenda and outline a new budget and what that all means for you, for me, for all of us. ABC News Political Director Averi Harper. Sorry, Averi. Why don't we first just start with your takeaways from the president on these Putin remarks? It's interesting, if you look back at the quote that he made, the ad-lib quote, he said, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power." So a regime change is what made news and alerted and made a lot of foreign policy experts uncomfortable. But today he was saying policy change. Isn't there a difference between policy change, regime change? How do you make sense of that?
Right. Well, after those remarks were made, administration officials tried to walk those comments back, saying that the U.S. was not calling for a regime change. But today we saw the president come out and make no apologies. He said he was speaking about his moral outrage against Putin's actions rather than calling for some sort of regime change. It was kind of remarkable to see the president speak about these issues. He said that he didn't believe that it was going to complicate diplomatic efforts. We know that French President Emmanuel Macron has come out and warned against the U.S. making inflammatory remarks. This is a very difficult and sensitive situation as the Russian aggression continues in Ukraine. We saw the president get very flustered at those repeated questions about those comments. And the fact is that the president is going to have a better answer to this because he's going to continue to get those questions.
Yeah, and he continued not to say the word regime either, which was interesting. All right, let's talk about his budget priorities. They include that billionaires tax, which we've talked about. It would have a minimum tax on households worth more than $100 million. His budget aims to significantly bring down the deficit. Also includes funding increases for law enforcement, climate initiatives, and the military. So what are the top items on the Democrats' wish list, do you think? And do they have a shot at getting it done?
Right. Well, I think this budget is really an effort to appeal to the middle. I think that the Biden administration knows that time is ticking, that midterms are quickly approaching, and they need to get folks like Senator Joe Manchin on board. So there are efforts to appeal to the middle here. I do think when you look at capping the cost of child care, mental health, doubling Pell Grants, fighting cancer, funding VA efforts, those are all things that could be agreed upon by members of both parties. I think where we're going to see some major bipartisan support is on support for law enforcement. The plan calls for $30 billion to fight crime and also $800 billion per year for the military. And again, amid this conflict in Ukraine, I think that's something that you're going to get members on both sides of the aisle in support of.
We also know there's a lot of anxiety about the economy and inflation right now. So how does this budget attempt to tackle that?
Right. I think when you look at some of the nitty-gritty details in this budget proposal, you see some efforts to tackle these supply chain issues. So there's investments in things like port infrastructure, in freight railways. The president also mentioned during his remarks investing in affordable housing and finding ways to make homes more efficient to bring energy costs down. The question is if these efforts are going to be able to quickly address the soaring costs and the rise of the cost of living across this country. That's not what we heard from the president today. A lot of those efforts and those measures that are listed out in this budget proposal take some time to complete. So we'll see what happens there.
One more question, if you don't mind, Avery. We got a lot of big news in Trump world today. ABC learned that the former president's son-in-law and advisor Jared Kushner is expected to appear voluntarily before the January 6th committee as early as Thursday, possibly. How significant do you think that is?
Well, Jared Kushner is a piece of the puzzle. He was a senior advisor to the president. He was part of President Trump's inner circle. And so we know that congressional investigators want to talk to all those folks. They're trying to get a clear picture of what happened in the lead up to January 6th. And so his information, his insight about conversations that were being had, about strategy that was being pursued to overturn the election is going to be important as they try to nail down those findings.
Averi Harper, thanks so much, Avery.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.